Welcome to the Football Breakdown. This is the Fantasy EFL preview show for Game Week 8. I'm Matthew South.
And I'm Iain Cooper.
God, it's been a while since I've done the introduction and been able to have you actually say you're Iain Cooper right after myself. It's probably been a month now at this point. Iain, how have you been?
Yeah, really nice to be back. It's been quite a turbulent couple of weeks, especially for the both of us, but it's nice to get back to business, and I'm really excited to get this episode out, really.
Yep, same. I think it's nice to come back and it just be a standard week. We've actually had quite a few of these, just full slate single game weeks, which are nice. We're probably going to hit some doubles soon again with some rearranged fixtures and some genuine double game weeks coming up. So it's nice to get this one in before we kind of hit a bit of madness here. Um, Rather than just going through last week because it's been a bit stop-start, do you want to just give me a quick overview on how the last few weeks have gone for yourself?
They've been especially average, if I'm honest. I haven't had anything like that I feel too ashamed with, but after a really poor start in the particularly first couple of game weeks, I just haven't really been able to claw ahead. If I go onto our league every game week in like the last 3 weeks, say, I'm just bang on mid table really. So I just can't catch up with a big points total, and it's funny because with this, like you're saying, it's a lot of normal weeks, a lot of just single game weeks. It's really hard to get that super high points return where I'm struggling to pick maybe 5 players that are going to do well. So I'm kind of relying on 3. So if I'm just relying on that on just one game, I'm really struggling to make the ground up. How about you?
Yeah, I do get what you mean. I've been faring better than yourself, but I've still had a couple of weeks I've definitely come in, more disappointed than I would have been. Even last week, last week I had the second highest score in our league. I had 63 points, and I still left it, just a bit frustrated with, I had Torp and Colwell in midfield, and I kind of spoke on the pod and I wrote about it, on the socials about how I was kind of torn between, say, like someone like Colwell and someone like Keylor Dunn, who just seems like such a safe pick, but when he doesn't land, he doesn't do anything at all. And then what happens is Colwell and Torp do nothing at all, and Keylor Dunn scores, and you're just sitting there like it's such an obvious pick to leave like on the shelf. And I'm not saying like Cobble and Torp were like that out there picks either. They're also quite obvious, but it's like, of
Yeah.
course, it feels like had they have gone the other way around, Cobble would have scored and Kilo Dunn wouldn't have done anything. And it's just things like that I'm just making a few decisions when I get down to a 50-50 and I'm regretting them. I've not been able to like land a good captain pick. I'd say one of my last, well, actually, that's a lie. My last the 3 before my last weekend have actually been probably my highest or second highest scoring player at least. But last weekend, yeah, like just leaving points on the board with the captain. I'm always captain players that can go boom or bust, but rather than maybe packing captaining someone with a higher floor. Say like I had Ross McCrory last week, and I was so certain of the Bristol City clean sheet, and I thought I might get some bonus points on top of that. And I'm like, well, the way I spoke about it, it was a guaranteed 10 points in my mind, which is what he got. So I'm like, why did I not captain him? Well, I went for Torp because I was like, well, he'll either do nothing or get over 10. And it's there like, it's that low floor thing for the captain. I'm there like, maybe this is where I'm like losing points anyway. Like, not the end of the world, but it's still like 4 points there potentially that I've lost, or 7 points there that I've lost. So stuff like that I think I've been frustrated with. But the rest of it I can't complain too much. Feel like in the league we're both kind of falling a bit behind. Like I'm in 10th, you're down in 18th out of 20.
18th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically in the relegation zone there. And like we've got someone in our league who's broken the 500 point mark. I'm down at 438, so I'm over 100 points off of the leader, and I'm like 60 points off of second, and it gets down there from there. So while people ahead of me are catchable, I just need to have good weeks to actually get into that kind of top 6-5 zone, which is in reach to be fair. So I think we'll just move on into our picks for the week. I do actually have a question before we start with the championship picks for you, or maybe a question or an observation. we're kind of at this weird mark with the championship where we're at the 5 game mark territory. Like this weekend, we'll see the 6th game, and we're going into it where clubs who are playing at home have only had 2 home games, and vice versa for the clubs playing away. So the data's a bit like it's still quite small, but then we're almost far enough
Yeah.
away from last season, where last season's data you wonder how relevant that is to this season. So my question to you is, obviously on the pod we force ourselves to do all 4 leagues. When it comes to maybe building your team, do you find yourself leaning away from the championship picks, or do you feel like that's exactly where you can make up ground because there could be some outliers to exploit?
So to be honest, it's the latter for me. I really think there's much higher potential in the championship, more because of just the unknown version, and there's some really high point scorers from last season that haven't really got going yet. So I don't. I'm not saying that their ability's gone this year. I'm just waiting for them to really kickstart. Like you think of players like Azaz, Sargent's doing really well, but there's a lot of other players that I'm really waiting to explode. Where I will jump on those more than League One and League Two. It sounds odd to say, but out of the high scorers in League One, League Two, there seems to be a real cap. As in, there's really 5, 6 players from both leagues that you feel like you need to jump on, and if you don't, then you really suffer. That's where I've been at. I've been focusing far too much on League Two and League One. Not maybe not too much, but I've been very ambitious of trying to find players I feel like will explode there. But they're just at the lower level where they don't really seem to get that return as such, and that gamble's really hurting me. So I'm certainly looking to be more championship focused. I say championship focused. I maybe have like 3 players from the championship, but at the minute I'm genuinely just picking one, and I think it's really hurting me at the minute.
Yeah, that's fair. I think to your point, last weekend we saw Jaden Philogene go off, and he's a top quality player, and it's been waiting for that. And I kind of saw a lot of people on it, but the people who were on it were not high point scorers. It seems they were just gambling on that being the first game of the weekend and maybe topping the leaderboard going into
Yeah,
Saturday's game. But he's the exact player where I know he wasn't playing in this league last year, but you've got a lot of top.
of that
Yeah, you've
ability.
got a lot of ability in the championship and players who can just do exactly what he did last week. And it's just, can you get the weeks that they do it, and while they haven't been doing it, and then how long are you willing to suffer through them before they actually give you that return? Yeah, I just think it's an interesting concept at the moment, because when you do the League One, League Two picks, it feels like you can almost just exclusively focus on this season with a little bit of past data, whereas in the Championship, as I'm going to get into, it's trying to say that after 2 home games for a team, this is what I believe them to be, is a little less convincing as an argument. But we'll
Yeah.
get into the Championship goalkeeper then, and I'll take us away with that. I am going to Derby County, and I'm taking Jacob Zetterstrom, who's only at 0.2% picked, which I'm not sure if I'm surprised by that or not. I do think that there's certainly, maybe the first 2 games that Derby played this season might be weighing into that with their goals against. But they're playing Preston this weekend. I'm going to start with Derby. They're off the back of a clean sheet last weekend against West Brom. Their opening 2 games, they did look frail at the back, but they've definitely tightened up since then. They conceded just the once to Bristol City, and they conceded 2 to Ipswich, but away from home. But one of them was a 99th minute penalty. So it's still a solid defensive performance, and they're at home again. They ended last season with 4 out of 5 clean sheets. They've still got the same manager and a lot of the same squad from there. So I'm willing to kind of lean back on that data here. And as always with a goalkeeper pick, the main thing I'm looking for is, what chance of a clean sheet do I have? But then Zetterstrom also comes into this. He's made 19 saves per Fantasy EFL app, which is the second most in the championship. Only Cooper has made more. So we're coming in at just under 4 saves a game, which is good for the +2 bonus point on average. He's only not picked that up once this season. Preston, meanwhile, they take the fewest shots per 90. They've just 1 goal in their 2 away games so far, and if you go back to their last 9 away games. They haven't won any of them and failed to score in 3 of them. The one before that was their last win away from home, but that was also only 1-0. So they average under a goal away from home for a while. In fact, all of last season, and even last season, Derby at home conceded just 18 in their 23 home games. So I'm hoping, I'm almost calling back into last season's data a bit here, but I do think Derby look a lot tighter. Eustace, we know what to expect from Eustace side. I think this game is going to be absolutely awful, but I think it will lean into the clean sheet. So that's why I'm picking Zetterstrom.
Yeah, and you can't really look anywhere else than a game that you think is going to be a bit drab, but it's just perfect for goalkeeper picks. Going into the defender pick, going to be repeating ourselves here because it was a player you literally just mentioned how it did perform for you last week. We haven't recorded on the pod together for a while, so haven't really been able to have a conversation about him. But I'm going to go for Ross McCrory. He's just a high-scoring wingback who scores all his points from all sorts of actions, really. He has 3 assists and 1 goal from the left wing-back position, and he might not be like the strongest of dribblers, but his size and his speed are sort of perfect for crashing into the box. I don't really know how to um, talk about it on a podcast, but when you watch him, he just looks so dominant running into the box. It's really hard to it's hard to work out, but the ball keeps arriving to him, whether he managed to lay that off from cross on the back post or score it himself. He's just really exciting, but in a really strange way. He also averages over 2 tackles and 4 clearances per 90, which is particularly high for at wing back. And of course, he's part of the Bristol City defence, which has conceded the 4th fewest goals in the Championship. He is picked by 10% of players right now, and a fixture at home to Oxford just seems so favourable, so I'm getting on alongside that 10%. As for Oxford, when we talk about clean sheets, their last 2 games have been really interesting. 2 all draws against strong opposition of Leicester and Coventry, but they were at home, and I just don't know if they have not the ability, but I just don't see them being away from home as being favourable here. Like their last game, okay, like we said, it's a really short data pool, but based off their last game, they were held to a 1-0 loss to Birmingham. Not comparing Birmingham and Bristol City, but Bristol City are just so dominant at the minute, and this is a game I really think they're going to fancy at home. So if I can get an aspect of a clean sheet as well as hopefully some sort of goal action here, I just think Ross McCrory is an absolute must this week.
Yeah, I feel like he's definitely going to be in the rotation for the next while he has that wing back slot of players you have to consider, especially the way that Struber has City set up into midfield then. And the person who actually caught my eye this week, almost surprised myself, it's Sorba Thomas for Stoke. When I was actually looking at him, I don't know why, I was quite surprised to see that he's only 26 still. I, for some reason,
Okay.
thought he was a lot older than that, like 29, 30. But no, 26, and he has looked like a real good pickup for Stoke this season. He has 2 goals, 3 assists in his 5 games. He's been a big part of their attack. Per 90, his 2 goals have come from 1.8 shots with 0.8 on target. So on average, we're not getting that bonus point, but we do have the goal chances still. His 3 assists have come from 2.4 key passes per 90, which is also good on its own for a bonus point. Last weekend at home to Birmingham, he had his quietest week so far in terms of fantasy with just 1 point, as he had a yellow card as well. But in that game, he hit the post. He had a key pass, but he made 10 crosses into the box. Only 1 was successful, but and he also had 51 touches, which was more than any of the rest of their front 4 had. So even in a quiet game for him, he was still, well, in a quiet points return game for him, he was still the player on the pitch that Stoke were giving the ball to more often than not. And I think then when you have a weaker opposition like this weekend against QPR, it will follow similar, but I think he's going to have more luck. I think he's going to have more chances. I think he will create more chances, and the strikers hopefully will take them for him as well. QPR give up the 3rd most shots per 90 in the league at 16.2, and no one has conceded more goals than the 12 they have as well. But before anyone decides that, well, they did have that 7 loss to Coventry, that must be a massive outlier, it isn't really that big an outlier. It is on the goal front, but it's not on anything else. The 19 shots that Coventry had isn't even the highest they've given up in a game yet this season. They gave up 21 last week to Wrexham. The two, like, Stoke are away as well to QPR here, so I looked at QPR's 2 home games. Of course, give up less shots than that, but they still give up 12 shots per 90 on average, and conceded in both of their home games so far. They rank pretty low across the board on those defensive metrics, and okay, their XG might be better because of that, but that is pretty much just because that 7-1 lost to Coventry with the wildly low Coventry XG. They give up shots means they give up goals. Like, that to me is actually quite a bit more important at this stage in the season than just the XG on its own after 5 games. Like, they're giving up chances, and that 7-1 just felt more like a thing that was going to happen than a fluke eventually. So I think Stoke going to have chances here. I don't think QPR have tightened up that much, and I just think they also rank better than QPR's previous 2 home opponents as well, attacking wise. So I like the Stoke at QPR matchup, and I like Thomas being the key part of that Stoke attack. So Sorba Thomas for me.
Yeah, no, Stoke are really interesting. I find them such a fun side to watch this season. But if you had to pressure me, I couldn't pick one player that I'd want to go with in fantasy. So I'm really excited. Well, I'm not excited. I'm really happy that you've opted to put your name on to someone, because they've got a lot of talent and it's just really hard to find a standout player at the minute. So be interested to see how that one goes. However, going into the forward pick, looking at outstanding players, I'm going to have to go for Josh Sargent. It's 5 and 5 for Sargent, and a weak performing Wrexham defence feels like the selection is a must for me. Sargent's underlying numbers are superior in the Championship with a really high XG, high touches in the opposition box, and total number of shots. I don't really need to explain too much more about Josh Sargent. Everyone knows what sort of striker he is. But I'm going to look at Wrexham, and they average 2 goals conceded per 90, but it doesn't really stop at that. They have the highest XG conceded in the league. Their goalkeeper has made the second most amount of saves in the league, and they've just faced a ridiculous amount of shots. So an informed striker really hasn't come at a good time for them, especially when they're travelling on the road. I remember talking about Wrexham last year, how they were really impressive defensively, and we did opt for Conquo and a lot of their defenders actually at different times. But there was always really, for their home games, they did struggle away from home when it came to keeping clean sheets. And just this next level above, okay, they have brought better players in, I know that, but there just seems to be a bit of a trend where they're just allowing so many shots at their own goal, which doesn't really feel like a Wrexham and certainly Parkinson tactic, let's say. That's why he's under pressure at the minute in his job, and I just think Sargent could have a feast, so got to go for him this week.
Yeah, I think with Wrexham, it does feel a bit more like maybe League Two Wrexham, where the games just feel really chaotic. And the issue is now is they don't have one of the better squads in the league. They arguably have one of the worst squads in the league, just because they've just come up from League One. So whereas before they could go toe to toe with these teams in League Two and beat them in these chaotic games, they're now kind of being undone in that similar manner. And yeah, I definitely think there's work to do. And yeah, we said before coming on, there's certain picks this week that just picked themselves. That was absolutely one of them. I feel like if you had come up with anyone bar Sargent there, I would have been astonished. So yeah, definitely agree with that.
And I'm going to go on to the goalkeeper pick for League One. I don't know about you, I've just found goalkeepers just on a whole really tough. I've had some horrific rates of getting clean sheets from my goalkeepers this year, but I'm going to go for Timothy Tutala, sorry. For Doncaster, they play AFC Wimbledon at home. Key thing for me, I think Doncaster are actually really impressive this year when they're against teams that are of similar ability. They do come out pretty strong, and they have kept clean sheets against Rotherham, Port Vale. They're the sort of calibre of teams that I'm really picking out here. I'm a little bit concerned about the Wigan game, but that was away from home. Not so fussed about that one. And Doncaster as a whole, defensively, have been really impressive. They've had the 6th most clean sheets already with 3. I know it's not high, but it is high when you consider how many games they've actually played. Their XG against is also very low, and sitting at 19th in the league for a team that doesn't seem to have too many big name dominant defenders for the league. Really impressive, those numbers. And they play against a Wimbledon side who actually haven't struggled in front of goal as much as I thought they have until when I started looking at the data. They do have an impressive amount of shots per 90 and that sort of thing. Their conversion rate is fairly poor. And I don't know, I'm almost arguing against the pick here at the minute, but I've really struggled with goalkeepers. In League One, there doesn't seem to be an outstanding defence other than if you were to look for a team like Cardiff at the minute. I just can't really find anywhere else to go, but I'm going for Doncaster's goalkeeper this week as a different avenue.
I think that's fair. I think with Wimbledon, their attacking numbers at home have definitely been better than their attacking numbers away. So I think that would support this pick. I do think there is arguably one keeper I would have picked in terms of a game that screams clean sheet, but don't worry, I'm going to cover it in the defence. So I'm glad you haven't covered it in the clean sheet. My defender is Charlie Good for Stevenage. Stevenage host Exeter, and this is exactly where I think the League One clean sheet is going to be. Earlier this season, actually, Charlie Good was a sub-point pick for me. I think in like week 1 or 2. I must have been week 2 or 3 actually, and he is now at 6.3% selection. So he's long gone from the sub-point category, but he's in a chance of my team here, and he's my League One defender. He averages 7.7 points a game now. Only Joe Wright exceeds that in League One for defenders, which is definitely a good place to start. Stevenage are looking for a 4th clean sheet in 4 home games this weekend as well. They've kept 3-3 so far, and they face an Exeter side, and I do think they've got a good chance. Stevenage only give away 7.7 shots against them per 90 at home, so they already don't really give away too many chances, haven't given away any goals. And Exeter themselves come in with 1 win and 1 goal in their 4 away games this season. They average just 4.5 shots a game away from home, and the only goal they scored was an own goal by Jack Grimmer. So you've got a side who haven't scored themselves away from home against a side yet to concede at home. I am getting on board with this game. Charlie Good is my defender. Also, his bonus points, 9.29 clearances, good enough for 2 bonus points, and 1.47 tackles is just shy of that extra one. He has a goal and 2 assists to his name, 0.71 shots a game for the goal side of things. Could be a threat going forward, has come up as a result in the past. You're looking at someone here who I definitely could see getting 9 points minimum with that clean sheet chance being so strong, and I wouldn't be surprised if he could pick up something else. Maybe the issue here is that if this game is so one-sided, we're just kind of stuck at the 8-point mark with a few clearances. But I just can't see past Stevenage winning this to 0.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. I spoke last week about how I was comparing Piergiani to Good, and Piergiani's defensive numbers were actually slightly edging it, so I was going Piergiani, and I said that he was going to be my team, and then I actually switched to Charlie Good, and I'm glad I did because he scored a goal, and so I can completely back what you're saying there. The fact he's rose so much in percentage shows that people are starting to have an eye not just on Piergiani but Good as well. So it's interesting to see how they've got a partnership pairing where you'd normally sway to one rather than the other, but there just seems to be such a split in EFL fantasy players of which one to go for. So definitely interested. Going to the midfielder pick for me, I've kept it quite simple. I've gone for Lewis Wing, mainly because I'm looking for a player that has actually had quite a few misses this season so far. Like he had 1 point against Huddersfield, 2 points against Bolton, but when he has such a higher ceiling. I really like the midfielders, the 3 midfielders for Reading, Ben Elliott and Charlie Savage as well, but they're yet to score an assist, so I can't really, for a fantasy point of view, I can't really lean towards those. However, for Wing, it's 7 appearances, 2 goals, 2 assists, just 10 key passes there as well. He does have, his XG is quite low, but he's just such a good shot taker from range. I'm not really worried about XG from midfielders that actually take attempts from outside the box. It's never going to be that impressive.
Lewis Wing is one player that you should just completely ignore XG for when you watch his
Yeah.
highlight reel. Like, we are not talking about tappins here. We are talking about 35 yarders. So.
No, exactly. But then his expected assists is actually quite impressive, being 0.2, which is much higher than I thought it was, because it's like you said, when you look at his highlights package, every time you see him on the ball, you just assume he's looking for the shot. So the fact he actually does create these chances as well, I know it's proven by him having 2 assists, but honestly, he gets assists, and I don't really know how he gets it, because it just looks like he wants to shoot all the time. But yeah, it's just one of those players that we're talking about. Would I go for the Championship with the potential higher ceiling than League One and League Two? Well, Lewis Wing is one of those players that certainly has those high ceilings as well. So that's why I'm opting for him this week, especially if I'm on a big catch up like I need to.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he's someone who was so good last season, has had a couple good weeks so far this season, but the
Yeah.
average isn't there. You'd like to think that he's someone though who the game doesn't really matter, because he's scoring points from scoring long ranges and just doing Lewis Wing things. Like, it almost doesn't matter anything else on the pitch. As long as he's there, there's always a chance that he could do something.
Yes. Like, let's put it this way: his average points total is 6.4, and he's rarely ever hit anywhere close to that. It generally is either like 10, 11, 12 points, or it's 2, 3.
Yeah, I think that's very telling. Yeah, into the forward pick then, and I did struggle a bit at first. There's always a few forward options in League One, and I was trying to land on one, and then I had a second look at all the fixtures, and Laurent Talai, Plymouth Argyle, step forward, please, because this game could be an absolute goal fest. It's Plymouth and Peterborough at home park. You've got a Plymouth Argyle side who had 5 goals in their game last week in a 3-2 win, 6 goals in their game the week before in a 4-2 win, and a Peterborough side who have one of the worst defenses in the league and have started very badly. So first of all, yeah, like as I said with Argyle's attack, 7 goals in their last 2 games. Talai scored one and assisted one of those, and he scored two in the EFL Trophy game before that at home park. Not really wanting to lean on things like that, but it got him up to speed. He was really good last week as well. He played a part in all 3 goals they scored, but only one was really an assist. But he still had that focal point. He's still very heavily involved in their attack, which is good to see for a striker, because it just covers that potential assist angle. In terms of his shot taking, 2.55 per 90. I would like that to be a little bit higher, but this is weighing in an Argyle side that have have been trying to get the wins. Like last week, they didn't have any of the ball and they had 10 men, so they didn't create anything for Talai, so he turned into the creator. The week before, he had quite a few shots against Stockport, and if you go back to the Blackpool game, which is the previous home game, I think he had 3 or 4 shots there as well and should have scored. So you've got someone who when it comes to games like this, he should have those chances. Peterborough, meanwhile, they've lost 4 from 4 away from home. They've conceded 10 goals in that time. They are one of the highest, shots against side, but ironically, Argyle probably rank worse than them in the defensive stats, but they also rank better than them in the attacking stats, which is why I've landed on Talai. I do think that there's an outside chance you could pick a Peterborough forward for this one as well. I don't think Argyle are keeping a clean sheet here, but in what I think could be a chaotic game, I'm going to pick the Argyle striker, or well, I'm going to pick the home team striker, in as I think they have a better chance of winning. So that's Laurent Talai as my League One forward.
Yeah, no, I like the pick. I tell you, an interesting angle that I quite like this pick for is actually to do with Plymouth's injuries. Like they are quite threadbare, especially in the attacking department. So when you have such a talent, it just almost emphasises that the team's going to be looking for Talai a lot more. So if he's going to see a lot more of the ball, you'd hope, especially if they're playing at home, it's just more opportunity for him to score points. It is actually an angle that I look at when I look at forward players, but I don't really mention it. But this one's just so pronounced when they've got players like Javier Amici and Caleb Watts that are injured going into this week. They're just going to need big players to get performances. So yeah, no, like the pick.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good point in general as well. Very often I look at average minutes or minutes that players actually play, because you don't want to pick someone who's regularly getting hauled before like the 60th, 70th minute in a game. Talai was subbed off last week, but that was at 3-2 3-2 up with 10 minutes to go, and to get a more physical striker on to hold the ball up. And before that, I don't think he's actually been subbed off in our goal game yet. So yeah, he's been since coming in, he's played a lot of minutes. I think, but in general, when looking for a player like that side of thing, that side of it is good. You want someone who's a key part of their attack, and B is going to be relied on, and C will stay on the pitch. I will then take us into League Two, and Glenn Morris Gillingham is my goalkeeper pick. Again, looking at who has the best chance of a clean sheet this weekend, there were a few candidates for this. I don't actually think, I'm not as confident as say I was in League One with the Stevenage and Exeter game, but I have been trying to get against Newport a few times recently, and I'm just going to stick on that train because I don't think they're that good. So as for Gillingham, they sit second in the league. They are unbeaten away from home, and they are facing a Newport side who sit 22nd in the league and have no home wins this season. So straight away, I like the look of the game for the away side. Gillingham defensively give up less than 10 shots a game, which is in the upper third of the league. I think what's really interesting is, they're a side who are overperforming their XG in terms of goals conceded. They're conceding less goals than expected. But when you kind of break it down, they concede, say in the upper third of shots per game, and then they're in like the top 4 or 5 for shots on target against, and then they are second for goals per shot. Like, they don't give away good quality shots, they just give away a few more shots, which means that this XG isn't necessarily coming from them giving good chances away. It's just from other teams having, like, racking up a few shots against them that are of lower quality. So I do think that's interesting to look at. Like, 0.06 goals per shot is really low, basically. And Morris himself has been absolutely fine in goal. He's already got a few clean sheets to his name. And then when you look at the opponents in Newport, they take the joint fewest shots per 90. They are a side struggling. Their XG is pretty low. And I do think something that's really interesting is, so I tried to get against them in their last home game for Bristol Rovers, and it ended 3-2. On the 68th minute, Bristol Rovers were 3-0 up, and Newport County had 2 shots. Like, from then onwards, it was game state. It was Newport scored twice, kind of a bit out of nothing, and had the rest of their shots that game to carry that up. Gillingham are not Bristol Rovers. Gillingham, I don't think, are going to take their foot off the gas like Bristol Rovers did, and they're not as sloppy as them. And I just think that 70-minute spell, Newport were terrible, and that's the Newport team that I'm looking at here, not the final 20 minutes of Newport that then claimed 2 goals back. They were better last week against Tranmere, but going back home, I still think that Gillingham are too good for them. So Glenn Morris is the keeper. I think the clean sheet chance is there.
Yeah, I'm glad you opted for the clean sheet chances for the goalkeeper, because my defender isn't so prominent with clean sheets. I've gone for Omar Schwumney of Bromley. They've kept 2 clean sheets in his 7 appearances, conceded 8 goals, and they played Chesterfield, so probably not an ideal route to go for, but he's sort of having a spell like we found, I believe it was around Christmas time last year that we picked on Schwimney for clearance numbers. He's had 55 clearances already in seven appearances. I'm looking at a player that I'm not too worried about having a really low score. If I look at, say, his last 2 games against Oldham, they lost 1-0, so no clean sheet there, but got 6 clearances, 2 blocks, 3 tackles, 5 points. I'd genuinely be happy with that. The next game, Bromley was against Gillingham. It was ended 2-2, so he got minus point for 2 goals conceded, but had 14 clearances, 2 tackles, 5 points. Fine with that. And then it's funny enough, it's when he got the clean sheet, he got 16 points, and you could say, okay, he got 16 points from a goal as well, so that's heavily weighted. But this man has averages 2.1 shots per 90 and an XG of 0.26 per 90. It's just ridiculous numbers from a defender. The fact that they're clearly aiming at him on set pieces is just a big plus. So if I can get somebody who's going to be playing against a tough team, we're expecting to get a lot of clearances, going to be risking the clean sheet points, but especially at a chance of a goal to make up for that as well, then I'm more than willing to do that for a defender who, again, has a really high ceiling. So yeah, I'm going for Omar Schwimney.
Yeah, he's someone who I think been trying to look at a few players who have this, where you have like the huge ceiling of could score, keep a clean sheet, and just have a massive return one week. And he's definitely someone who is in that category that it's almost worth a gamble if you're trying to make the catch up on points. Into midfield then, and Stephen Duke McKenna is my midfielder for Harrogate Town this weekend. At home to Shrewsbury Town, McKenna's been good this season. He's got 3 goals and an assist to his name. Harrogate, haven't been great. They've not won in a while. They've lost their last 4 games, I think. But Duke McKenna's still been picking up points in that time. So even with them literally scoring 2 goals in their last 4 games, McKenna's had 12 points, 3 points, 9 points, 3 points. Those bigger scores have come at home as well, which is exactly why it's catching my eye here. I think this is a lot more even game at home to Shrewsbury, who are also struggling in the league. Duke McKenna as well, 2.33 shots per 90, 1.09 on target. We're good for the bonus point there. His key passes are 11 in 8 games. He's coming in pretty well there. Like we're just shy of getting potentially 2 key passes a game, and he also has 3 interceptions in 8 games. So it's an outside chance for an interception. But they face Shrewsbury, who have conceded 16 goals in 8 games. They they just don't look that good in this league, in my opinion. And whilst Harrogate are also struggling, it's probably their best chance to kind of pick up a win against someone like Shrewsbury that you'd argue they could be down at the bottom with. 11 of Shrewsbury's 16 goals they've conceded have come away from home as well. So this game, to me, I just think there's a chance that you can get someone like Jim McKenna, who is quite well picked. He is at 3.1%. He does average 6.8 points a game. It's pretty good, and I think this is exactly a game where he'll exceed that average. And I just think he's one of Harrogate's best goal threats, and they haven't had many goals this season that he has not been involved in.
Nice. I'm just going to go to the forward pick for League Two. Actually, a few more options than I first thought, but I am going to go for Harry McCurdy of Crawley. Again, I've got this real trend of just picking a player that's in form, but got playing against dodgy opposition. You could say he's a way to Notts County. Maybe not ideal, but he's just in such a rich vein of form at the minute. Didn't start off the season scoring high points. Started with 2 points against Grimsby, 2 points against Newport, 3 points against Crewe. But then it really kicks up. He gets an assist against MK Dons, and then we really see the high potential that he has. He scored 4 goals. They've come from just 2 games, so 15 points and 13-point return. He's averaging a lot of shots. Maybe not all of them need on target, but look at his last game, 3 shots on target against Cheltenham's really high. To get 3 bonus points for shots on target is quite rare, unless you're going to score a hat-trick. I don't really see that happening. And Notts County aren't as strong defensively as I first thought they were. They have quite a low conceded XG, but then they do average. Sorry, I did have it here. They do sit 18th for clean sheets. They've only got 1 clean sheet, and they actually do face a lot of shots on target, which I was surprised at when their XG conceded so low. So a player of McCurdy's ability who does strike a nice ball from distance, I quite like this matchup. So an alternative pick, you would normally go for a player that's a bit more in form, like a Patrick or Cheek or someone like that. But I quite like the outside pick of McCurdy.
Yeah, I think that is nice. Yeah, I think there's a lot of League Two striker options, but maybe trying to see someone who is potentially a higher ceiling right now and is almost a differentiator is also a good shout. So that brings us to the end of our player picks, but we will move on now to our sub point picks. Yes, it's time for our sub point picks this week. As always, myself and Ian are picking a player picked by 0.1% of people or less going into game week 8. Ian, do you want to tell me who you've gone for?
Yeah, sure. So my player is 0% picked. I think it's because it's quite a recent transfer, so people haven't really caught on to it yet. But I'm going for Sam Bell of Wickham. He's played, it says on 3 appearances, but I'm pretty sure it's only 2. He's got an assist and a goal already. Plays on the left-hand side of a front 3 for Wickham, and they play at home to Northampton. So I'm happy with the pick. Northampton actually have really good defensive records. They have, but they also have this one of the fewest shots on target as well. Their games heavily go one way, and they're just able to grind a result out, which I do think benefits, especially away from home, is in we're going to see. Well, Bell's going to see a lot of the ball. Bell already has decent stats for key passes. He has 5 key passes already in those 2 appearances. So if he's going to see more of the ball in attack positions, I'm hoping to get bonus points there. And it's strange. He's not a player that's above the level, because I don't think if he was in the championship, I'd be really wanting to pick him for this pick as well. But he's just at League One. I find him really exciting. Like it wasn't too long ago where it wasn't a surprise to see Sam Bell in the Bristol City lineup. I believe he got 20 starts last season. So to get him at Wickham and on 0% picks, I'm really happy with this pick.
Yeah, I think that is nice. I was looking at him when I was doing my my League One forward pick actually, and I did consider him there, but bailed out of it for Talai. But an interesting one. I was actually torn between 2 players, and they they actually play against each other and literally contradict each other, which kind of shows the where my thought process is. I'm going for Alex Mitchell for Plymouth Argyle, who sits at 0.1%, and his clearance stats have him down as 12.64 clearances per 90, which is good enough for 3 bonus points here. I do think, as much as I did say earlier, I do think the clean sheet chances here. I might explain my other where I was going to go with my other pick in a second, but as to why I'm a bit wary of the clean sheet chance. But in theory, this is probably Argyle's best chance to keep a clean sheet at the moment. Like, they've had quite a tough on paper opening few games, and the one team that they have played who aren't performing that well are Blackpool, and they kept them out with a 1-0 win. Mitchell got 9 points that game as well. Like the last 2 weeks he's been high teens for clearance numbers as well. So even with conceding 2 goals, he's come out with 5 points in both of his last 2 games as well. So the fact I think that the clean sheet chance has a chance of coming in here as well. I don't think the clearance numbers will reach that high, but even if they do, he's also moved into the middle of a back 3, which is exactly what we like for our central centre backs for clearance
Yeah.
numbers. So there's that too, which is also why, even though they've had 2 tough games recently, I also think his clearance numbers have gone up because of his position slightly altering, which I like. Peterborough do have poor attacking numbers. Whilst Argyle may have terrible defensive numbers, they have Peterborough are going to be one of the worst attacks they have played this season. Their 9.25 shots a game is the 5th worst in the league. Their shots on target actually is the 4th worst, and their goals per shot is the 3rd worst. Only 2 sides have scored fewer goals than them as well. So yeah, even though they have had a bit of a revival in the last couple of weeks, I do think that is also coming against playing some poor opposition. So yeah, I'm happy to kind of take this risk this week for a sub point pick with a player who has a chance of hitting that 9-10 point mark. He's also had a couple of shots at goal, not too many, but you never know. The way that this is going, the way Peterborough concede too many shots, there should be a good number of corners. That is an outside chance. So I've gone with Mitchell. The other side of the coin was going for Harry Leonard for Peterborough because his shot numbers are ridiculous in the 2 games he's joined. It would completely contradict everything I've just said. But if Peterborough score and it's Harry Leonard, just know that I am sitting in my room crying. Um, but yeah, like I do think he's one to watch going forward. I just can't bring myself to do it this weekend, even though Argyle do give up a ridiculous amount of shots and Leonard himself takes a ridiculous amount of shots. There's just something here that I'm not quite going to pull the trigger on it just yet. But he's sitting at 0%, so there might be a chance to do it next week if they're at home. So yeah, Alex Mitchell, Plymouth Argyle, my sub-point pick. So on to our teams then this week, and this is how my starting 7 is looking. In goal, I have Philip Marshall for Stevenage. As I kind of mentioned, I like the look of this game, and it's going to come as no surprise that I'm doing something which I hate, and I'm doubling him up with Charlie Good for Stevenage to really go
Nice.
against this Exeter narrative. Well, I'm going for this clean sheet. This isn't like an anti-Exeter thing. It's just very much that the data for this game screams like 1-0, 2-0 Stevenage. So yeah, Good is partnered by Alex Mitchell, my sub-point pick in defence. My midfield is Duke McKenna and Sorba Thomas, as I spoke about, and I've also thrown in Cozier Dewberry into my midfield for now. The Bolton Wigan game is a derby, and it does make me want to almost change this pick because of that. I feel like sometimes you kind of throw a bit of the data out the window when it comes to a game like this. I think Wigan have kind of got the better of Bolton recently as well. But for now, he's a very good player, so he's staying in my team. And up front, as Ian mentioned earlier, Josh Sargent just feel like he's the striker for this week.
Yeah, nice. And going into my team, definitely pending change, but at the minute I have Timothy Lotutala in goal. Defensive 2 of Ross McCrory and Omar Shwimney. Midfield 2 of Lewis Wing, and I'm bringing in Anis Mehmeti into my midfield pick. So doubling up with 2 Bristol City players, but just for different reasons. And up front, I have Josh Sargent and my 0.1 pick, Sam Bell.
Nice, yeah. I was also contemplating Twine or Mehmeti this week. I feel like Mehmeti's a good option. For sure. I think they're both good options, but Mehmeti seems to be, he just has that clinical nature that when he gets on a run, he's just unbelievable. So
Yes.
yeah, he's definitely in my consideration should I decide to pull out of the Cozy Dewberry pick. But yeah, do follow us on the socials. We're on X at FBBD Pod, and we're on Bluesky at Football Breakdown. We will have our full lineups out tomorrow, Saturday morning, before, well, I say Saturday morning, we'll have them out before the 12s and definitely before the 3 p.m.s. So do follow us there. We'll keep you up to date with any fantasy EFL information. Into the final part of the show then, and it's our teams to win. I think I've had a couple of times both teams have landed for myself this season. I unfortunately haven't been keeping track. I don't know if you have, Ian.
I know I've got none, so if that
Okay,
helps.
well, technically, yeah, you don't have to keep track. I've had a couple, so it's not too bad. Um, yeah, do you have your teams then for this week?
Yeah, I certainly do. I've been trying to extend my points by going for away teams, and it's definitely been riskier picks. So I'm going for 2 home teams this week. First up is Bristol City, probably no surprise. Not going to really go on too much about it as I spoke about McCrory, and we definitely spoke about Bristol City's defence this season already, and at home they are really exciting. Second game, actually, I had quite a bit to talk about, but you have kind of mentioned it all as well. I've gone for Stevenage at home to Exeter, so echoing your thoughts there. Just 2 really fancy teams. I just need to pick up points from teams, and I just haven't, and I think that's really hurted me in the league. So really focusing on 2 strong teams going into this. How about you?
Yeah, I have also been focusing on the double away. Pretty much I think every week this season. I'll have to double check that. I definitely know the last few I've been sticking with this double away strategy, and it's kind of I feel like I've had the better end of it than yourself, so I'm sticking with it. Gillingham on my first team, as I kind of said with the Morris pick, who I'm tempted to pull him in goal to cover the double Stevenage clean sheet instead. Um, I just think Gillingham will win this game at Newport. I think they're a much better team than them, and I said a lot under the Morris pick defensively. Going the other way, it's probably no surprise that it's fairly similar. Gillingham are a decent attacking team, and Newport are not a very good defensive team. So kind of leans into that. The second pick I have, this is the one that I struggled with for a while, but I convinced myself during this podcast actually. I'm going for Stoke away at QPR. I, I do like I think the data supports Stoke winning here. And when I was talking about Thomas, the chances that he should get this week and the chances that he creates, it kind of just pulled me into the fact that I do think Stoke are good enough to go to QPR and win. And this isn't one that I'm like, it's probably the least convincing pick I've had in a while, but my other option was was Southampton to win at Hull, and I just don't want to do that. So
I looked at that as well and didn't want to do
yeah,
it.
so I do like Stoke. This isn't me. I'm not going to pick someone for the sake of it. I would just pick a home team, but I do like the look at Stoke at QPR. And that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for bearing with us these last few weeks as well. We know this. It's probably been a tough listen when it's either been just myself or no podcast or both of us clipping together a podcast remotely. So I'm hoping this one is just a lot better. It's probably a bit longer than usual because we haven't been able to do this in a while, so it's probably dragged on. But thank you
Yeah.
everyone for listening. We do appreciate it as always. Do give us a like, do give us a follow. Do come give us a message. Do tell us if you think our picks were terrible and if our teams are rubbish. Any engagement we are happy to get involved with. Thank you, Ian,
Thank you,
and
Matthew.
take it easy.